Hello, everyone. Bianna Golodryga. I am thrilled to be with you at the Paley Center again. Anytime I get asked to participate in an event here, it is always an honor and thrill to join, especially on an evening like today and the conversation that we're about to have, which is not only professionally important for me, but very personally important and relevant in my life now, especially since October 7th. I do want to bring in our distinguished panel. Let me start with Maria Zalewska, who is a media and Holocaust scholar, executive director of the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Foundation. Mazzig, who's the author, global educator, and creator, host of And They're Jewish, and founder of the Tel Aviv Institute. Bronfman, activist, influencer, and businesswoman. And Matthew Segal, who will hobble his way up.
I broke my foot. Apologies. I'm a little slow here. Thanks so much.
The co-creator and CEO of Attention and the Holocaust Memorial Council Board trustee. Thank you all. That was quite a powerful video that we just watched, and really speaks to your strengths and your passion in covering this topic in particular. Matthew, you produced a video about October 7th with Sheryl Sandberg. I interviewed Sheryl for the film. It was very powerful, and it came at a time when people did and still do question the validity of the testimony, the eyewitness testimony, the brutality of the October 7th attack, specifically sexual violence against women. Can you talk more about your experience making that film?
Sure. So first of all, I run a company, Attention. We're a social video publisher. We cover topical issues. I'm not a creator myself, but we work with many creators, public figures, celebrities, influencers to get important messages across. Fighting anti-Semitism has always been near and dear to my heart. And that video was very important because of the timing and context during which it came out. It was about 2 weeks after October 7th. There was, still fresh blood all over Israel, so to speak, and very few, very, very few, almost no female public leaders, figures, women's groups who are often the first to condemn sexual violence, discrimination against women, especially on the progressive side of the aisle, had said a word. And so I had the opportunity to produce a video with Sheryl Sandberg, who is as many of you know, prominent public figure and who took an interest in this issue, and help really explain to the world that sexual violence on a mass scale happened in Israel on October 7th. The other thing I should say about our company, and we have about 17 million followers across our own social platforms and pages that we control, is we're often programming to non-Jews. I mean, we're not programming to an audience who's sophisticated in Israel or even, the nuances of anti-Semitism and how it appears. So if you watch that video, albeit very brief and made for Instagram, the whole point was to say, no matter which side you're on, no matter even if you have legitimate qualms, complaints, concerns with Israel, rape as an act of war is something we can condemn. And that was the message we worked with Sheryl to produce. It went viral. And actually, because Sheryl created space for other people to speak, eventually Planned Parenthood, about 2-3 days after that video, did issue a statement condemning the rape. Hillary Clinton shared the video. Giselle and Tom Brady shared the video. We had a bunch of people outside the echo chamber share it, put it on their stories. And I felt like it was one of the few pieces we've produced that has broken through outside of this echo chamber that we all know is super hard to get through and out of. So that's the context.
Yeah, I can tell you for a fact, it took 8 weeks after the atrocities of October 7th for UN Women to condemn the sexual violence committed that day. And I know that date because the night before they did, I interviewed the head of the organization and could not get an answer as to why that hadn't happened yet. So, Hannah, the Shine a Light movement, the message, I mean, everyone knows Rabbi Buchdahl. She's a phenomenon here in New York and around the world. But breaking bread and having conversations with, as we just heard from Matthew, not just Jews, but also allies as well, and people from diverse backgrounds to share their stories and to learn a little bit more about Judaism and what it encompasses is such a powerful idea. I'm just curious how you got involved with it and what you've learned from it since.
Sure. Well, I've had the privilege of knowing Rabbi Buchdahl for a long time. She actually spoke at my grandfather's funeral, and we've done lots of work with her through Hillel over the years. And Shine a Light came to me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of that campaign, and I was more than willing to have that conversation in a smaller environment, which, as Matthew noted, like, having these conversations online can be really difficult. Whether you're in an echo chamber or not, it doesn't seem like social media is really the place for this type of discourse, which has probably been the hardest part of being a creator, a Jewish creator at this time. I actually was also a part of Cheryl's campaign against the sexual violence, not the film you guys did, but the campaign where she had all the women kind of talking about it. And when I shared that video on my platform, the amount of people who, felt the need to personally attack me, telling me that I had been brainwashed, how could I say such lies? I mean, I was absolutely shocked by that extreme notion that people just were completely denying what they were actually seeing. Because I think that's the other thing. We saw horrific visuals of actual footage of what happened. So the fact that people could even see that and still deny was absolutely baffling to me. And so I've tried to create places outside of social media, real, in person, in my home, places that people feel safe to have these conversations, Jews and non-Jews, because it is so important to have these conversations with allies. And I even was at a dinner just recently with some folks who, there were lots of different opinions in the room, and it felt like one of the only places outside of my home that I could have a conversation and it not become a heated, kind of violent convo, but rather one that was, we all kind of respected each other in the room, and left room for questions and serious debate, because I think also people are turning October 7th into a different, people are trying to really understand the root of it, whether it's a land back conversation, and it's not, it becomes a very nuanced conversation if we're really going to talk about how we got here, despite just what happened on October 7th. So there are a couple different truths that I think can also be true at once that people don't want to admit to. And so yeah, it's been really hard. It's been difficult, but these are the conversations that I feel inspired by folks like you guys who are in the room, and Hen has been such an amazing person guiding light during this time, because I think everything he does on social particularly is something that I look to in terms of when I'm feeling very overwhelmed. Sometimes you always have the answers, so.
It's a perfect segue to you, Hen, because sadly we know anti-Semitism far predated October 7th, but the skyrocketing increase that we saw after the attacks, and this is before the war even began, it was hours after the atrocities were committed. And, Hannah's not alone. A lot of people, myself included, turn to people like you and follow the work that you've been doing. And we should note that And They're Jewish premieres on YouTube on April 2nd. So
what a contrast.
Coincidentally, coming this week. And I'm curious if you can just tell us about what inspired you to make this project. And you clearly had a grasp of a growing crisis much earlier than I think a lot of the world did.
Yeah, and it was on October 7th. So I have the Tel Aviv Institute, my nonprofit that was supposed to be focusing on anti-Semitism online, and we've been working in this space for years. We've connected long before October 7th, just seeing, some anti-Semitism, but not really. I don't think anyone realized how bad it's going to turn. I would lie if I say that I thought that it's going to be as bad. And on October 7th, I wake up in London. I live between London and Tel Aviv, and I'm seeing the notifications and the news coming out. I'm speaking to my family in Israel. I'm shocked. I never imagined anything like that. I don't think any of us imagined anything like that happening. And I open my laptop, and I'm seeing from this clip on the CNN showing the rise in online anti-Semitism. I was already in the spaces. I was on X, I was on Instagram, and I saw all of it in front of my eyes, and I was shocked because I was just dealing with the trauma of my family and my friends going through this, and then seeing the reaction online. So for the next, I was going to say for the next 3 months, but I still haven't stopped. Every day I wake up and I just look at the information. I look at the Telegram groups. I get information from, luckily I speak Arabic, so I can look into Arabic media. I speak Hebrew, I can look into Israeli media, into all of the Telegram groups. And I bring the message far before the traditional media is reporting it. And that has been a big advantage for me. I was able to, I don't know if anyone heard about the Nova Music Festival being described as a peace music festival. I was the first one to call it a peace music festival. I just decided to add this word. And in my head, I know it's not lying because I know the people that are going to this festival, and I know how it's peaceful, and I just made a strategic decision to use this word, and I kept using it, and then it stuck, and people started calling it and then Biden came to Israel in November 2023, and he called it a peace music festival. So I put words in the mouth of the president. But that I think, and there were so many other stories throughout this time that I've just been able to craft a message that is not inflammatory, that is focusing on peace, that is humanizing, that is looking at both civilians and innocents on both sides, and prioritizing humanity. And I'm not going to apologize for leading with humanity. I'm not going to apologize for leading with kindness, and I'm not going to apologize for leading with love to the Jewish people and my country and my people there. You can be all of it. You can be pro-Palestinians, you can be pro-Israel, you can be Jewish, you can be just proud of who you are. And I guess probably being from a family of Iraqi and Tunisian Jewish refugees, and being a gay man and being Israeli, and then moving to America and having all these intersections of identities all of my life, people told me to be ashamed of something. And I'm not. I'm not going to be ashamed of any part of who I am. And that the segue is to And They're Jewish. It's just been my love project because I keep thinking what's going to happen after. We're going to be, the war would end hopefully soon. I'm praying every day for the hostages to come back home. And then we're going to be left with a whole generation that have seen terrible things online. And Jews are being dehumanized in such a way that it's probably only second to the Holocaust and how bad we are being seen by so many people. And this project is meant to change that. And on my Instagram, I have a monthly reach of 150 million people that are seeing my posts. There aren't that many Jews. So I'm sure there's non-Jews watching it. And the goal of this project is to get to those people that are curious enough, that want to engage with those individuals. And it's not just about the trauma, it's not just about the pain, it's about the resilience of the Jewish people. And maybe that's also a reminder for us. We're fighting anti-Semitism, and I'm hoping that we would end it one day. But it doesn't matter because we're fighting it, and by fighting it, we're telling the world that we're not giving up, that we're standing up, and that fighting anti-Semitism can look in so many different ways. But it's also about the joy. It's also about focusing on the fact that we are here, and whenever we feel like hopeless, we just need to remember that it was far harder for our grandparents, our ancestors, and we're still here, and we're like, it's being Jewish and alive is magic, it's a miracle. It shouldn't be, but it is, and it's something worth celebrating.
Yeah, so well said. And Maria, you wrote and produced that very moving short video that this clip started with, They Were Just Like Us, and it's commemorating the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. The film was shared through social media and has received a lot of wonderful and I just think inspiring feedback as well. What drove you to this project and to tell it the way you did?
Before I answer this question, and actually leading into my answer, I want to thank the Paley Center for hosting us. I want to thank my co-panelists. This is a very special evening. And what makes this evening even more special is that we are joined by my dear friend, an Auschwitz-Birkenau survivor, Eugene Ginter. And his lovely wife, daughter, and granddaughter. And it's a perfect segue to talk about this movie. In the summer of 2019, before COVID, a different era, I was invited by the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum to raise funds, produce, write a short film. They actually said the task is quite simple. You have less than 2 minutes. It has to bridge the past with the present. It has to be quite universal. You have to attract young audiences. It needs to emphasize the singular and collective dimension of the trauma. Go. And by that time, I was already involved in the preparations for the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. That's how I got very close with Eugene. Our foundation, the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Foundation, was putting together a very unique delegation of 120 Auschwitz-Birkenau survivors from all over the world, from the United States, from Canada, from South America, Israel, Australia, many different countries, many European countries. So we were already involved, but this particular project was a unique and a very interesting challenge to me. I have background in film. I went to the USC Film School, so I welcomed it. But thinking about all these parameters that were supposed to be met, and thinking about the immense responsibility to honor Auschwitz-Birkenau survivors, the victims, and also Auschwitz. My friend, Rabbi Michael Berenbaum, once said to me, the Holocaust was more complicated than Auschwitz, and Auschwitz was more complicated than the Holocaust. When you go to the commemorative event, you also have to think about non-Jewish victims. So you have to produce some kind of a message that encompasses traumas, plural. So just long story short, the very first idea I had was actually the visual anchor that became the heart, the emotional heart of this piece, which is that moment when somebody, just like us, is reading a book, taking his glasses off and putting it on a pile of glasses. And the idea is that this person is, could be sitting in a Nowolipki street in Warsaw in 1930s or Brooklyn 2020. And then zoom out, the singular is bridged with the collective, the personal, with the universal, and that's how it came to be.
It's really breathtaking, and when you zoom out and when you see all of those glasses, right, and you're reminded. I just got back from Israel, and we were celebrating my son's bar mitzvah last week, and the day before. The day before we went to Yad Vashem, and it's the same thing. It's when you see the memorials, when you see what could happen to one can happen to all, and you realize just how powerful memorials like that are, how powerful a 2-minute film can be when you put it in perspective. It really leaves you speechless, and I just want to say thank you. It's an honor to sit here in your presence, so thank you for joining us. I do want to turn the focus now to anti-Semitism on social media in particular, and everything we've seen subsequently after October 7th. According to the AJC's 2023 report, so I would imagine this number's only increased, 68% of American adults who reported seeing or hearing anti-Semitism in the past 12 months say they saw it online or on social media. And Matthew, I'm just curious how your engagement on social media has evolved since October 7th, and maybe we can just take that question down the line of the panel.
I would say social media is on one end of the spectrum, it's a hostile place because you see the worst of humanity projected, particularly in the comment sections. But it's also a place of inspiration and connectivity. It sort of is all-encompassing of humanity in many ways. And so it's hard to define it succinctly in that respect. What I will say is there has been a troubling degree of anti-Semitism that has not been reined in by social platforms. And in particular, we're now starting to see it reemerge more acutely on the right. But right after October 7th, I think we saw it even more acutely on the political left. And I think with anti-Semitism, it's of course one of these rare societal challenges where you have that horseshoe where Jewish people are often squeezed from both the left and the right, and you have to be vigilant on both sides. I think we might get to the discussion of social media monitoring, regulation, trust and safety. These are all complicated issues. But it's a troubling place, but it's also a place where you have creators who are waking up a lot of people. And I actually prefer to look at the positive side of social media, which is that since October 7th, people like Hen and Hannah have woken up a lot of sleeping Jews, people who were never paying attention to their Jewish identity, and I think that's super important. I think we've done a little bit in that respect too. And then I also think that social media has, created a platform for a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't know much about anti-Semitism at all to maybe learn about the issue. So again, it's very complicated. It depends what audience you're targeting, who you're programming to. It's a broad question. But nonetheless, it's the battlefield of today. And the last thing I'll say on that is I just heard a general speak last week, and he said that we used to fight wars land, sea, and ground. And now we're fighting wars digitally online. And that's where the battle for hearts and minds is being fought and waged by foreign governments, by bad actors, by all kinds of deep moneyed interests. And I'm incredibly focused on staying active, engaged, and a programmer on social media for that purpose. Because if you just ignore it, it won't ignore you. So in that respect, it's certainly something we all have an obligation to engage with, albeit having parts that are very toxic and also parts that are equally inspiring.
Hannah, where did you draw the line in terms of how you would address anti-Semitism given your large platform and what you would and wouldn't engage with?
That's a great question. And well, I kind of took the approach that I am not a news outlet, so I'm not constantly giving updates on how the war was progressing. What I was trying to do was combat the anti-Semitism that we were seeing here in the United States, and how that was affecting Jews globally. Now, in the early days after October 7th, I had said things like, check in on your Jewish friends, or your Jewish friends are scared. And that was even met with extreme resistance. I will say that for someone who has literally been living my life on the internet for over a decade now, I have never experienced the type of hate that I was getting. It actually made me spiral a little bit into having a bit of a panic attack and wanting to take a step back from social media. I've always seen social media as a place to create inspiring content, even though it can be this, very overwhelmingly dark place as well. I do think social media does very much encompass all of humanity in that way. I think for me, what I was most shocked about and what took me a little while to get my voice back after kind of, I had people saying things to me in person as well as online. So it was, I have small children. I also live very close to NYU, which has felt very hectic. My 4-year-old came home asking, what a protest was walking through Washington Square Park, and it wasn't just a regular protest. It was, a protest around, Hamas-loving college students. So it's been really difficult to navigate. I will say something that hurt particularly for me was the lack of voices I heard from the Black community. During Black Lives Matter, everyone rallied, including Jews. What we saw with George Floyd was absolutely atrocious, and it has changed social impact in America forever. And a lot of those voices, a lot of those friends of mine were absolutely silent and have still been silent. And I have completely lost friends over their lack of voice. So it's been crazy. And I think for me, I draw the line around breaking news, but really just try to lead with compassion and facts and real information. And it's really hard when you see people who have more followers than there are Jews globally say outrageously false things that just perpetuate Jewish hate and anti-Semitism. So, some of that I'm not afraid to speak out against. It's social media I realize can be a very scary place, and I also have to protect myself, my mental health, and it's been an interesting road.
Yeah, I think we all can relate to that in some way. I mean, Hen, we were talking about this before. October 7th proved to be a very lonely environment in the days and months after, for Jews especially, I know for myself, where you felt at times gaslit. All of a sudden, Jews couldn't be the arbiters of what they felt was anti-Semitism. Other people were telling you what was anti-Semitism. Zionism all of a sudden became a very provocative, taboo word. How have you approached all of these hurdles in the past year and a half, and what advice would you give to others who have experienced the same and don't necessarily know how to respond?
I'd love to hear your answer to that.
We don't have enough time.
But did you experience it I'm sure in your industry, just following from afar and seeing it, is it okay that I'm asking?
No, of course. Listen,
I'm actually fascinated.
No, as journalists, we're always taught to have thick skin, not thin skin, thick skin. And, my focus really turned to covering the hostages, October 7th, the rapes. And this has been sort of, the core of my focus in terms of October 7th, and I'm grateful that CNN has given me the platform and the space to do it. I've, for years, avoided looking at comments, but I've changed my social media hygiene. My children were attacked. I don't post pictures of family anymore. There are certain things that you just do and assume that they're bots or noise. But, that's me. I would imagine there are lots of other people that feel similarly and don't know who to turn to or where to go when they feel so lonely.
Right, and I'm asking because I've seen the attacks against you, and I've seen how brave you've been throughout this to keep your journalistic integrity and stay factual and speak about what matters, and that's bravery. And Hannah posting about your Jewish identity and sharing my posts quite often and sharing posts from other users and calling out anti-Semitism and being brave in an environment that is so toxic and so violent. It's inspiring to me, because for me, it's, I get attacked all the time. I get attacked in person. I live in London, so it's not, I go back from the BBC studio, going home, and people already saw me on TV, and I get like barged into, and it's hard, but like, I feel like I'm kind of called into this moment, and that my experience led me into being here and speaking up and being a voice and being a tool for my people. But I think it's not as brave as it is for people that it's not. I mean, no one asks you to deal with that. Like, I hear you speak, and my heart breaks, because I'm thinking, why do you need to know how to discuss this? It's really unfair, and I think that's why anti-Semitism is a quest to gaslight Jews. It's a quest to make us doubt everything we know. It's a quest to make us hide and to assimilate and to change who we are in this desperate. We're desperate to be to stop this hate and to stop the gaslight and to stop feeling like we are alone. So I think every Jewish person that is still proud Jewish person today is a survivor, and we have survived this massive campaign that was targeting each and every one of us, and meant to make us to not make you sit on the stage, and you're still here, and you're still here, and you're still doing what you're doing. So for me, that's inspirational. I forgot the question, but that's sorry.
What advice do you give people who find themselves without platforms like yours, who turn to you, who turn to Hannah, who want to feel that they aren't as alone as they do feel in the moment or their reality?
Right, and I mean, so that was the answer, basically, that you guys inspire me, that what you're doing is really incredible. And I used to focus on the hate a lot in the first months, and it would just drive me, not in a healthy way, to keep working and to keep fighting, and it got me also really upset, and I said some stuff online that probably, I could have toned it down a little bit. I was hurt as well, and I think my partner told me, he reminded me that with all the hate I get so much love from Jews and from allies and people, even non-Jews, that are telling me, I feel like I can follow your page because you give me something that is, you see the humanity in everyone, you're not aggressive, you don't, there's a lot of righteous anger. We are fighting anti-Semitism, so we should be upset, we have every right to do it, but how we communicate our anger, we need to be careful not to fall into where they want us to be, because the anti-Semitism as a whole, everyone that is fighting against Jews, their goal is to taint us in a specific way, and if we fall into it and we become what we're fighting against, then we've lost. Mm-hmm. And we need to remember who we are, we need to remember our values, and let that lead us. And the love that I'm getting in the street, that's like, it's just a reminder for me that, people would come to me and cry, and very often they cry, which is, it's very sweet. I don't know what to do with that, but it's very sweet. But I give them a hug, and I feel the pain with them, and it's just reminding me that what I do helps others. So just by existing, just by being proud Jew, we're making a difference. So, and that's what And They're Jewish is about, which you are going to watch on YouTube and subscribe to the channel later. It's about being proud and about being visible. The more visible we are, the less the lies would work. That's Harvey Milk said it. Sorry, one sentence, but Harvey Milk said it, that every gay person needs to come out of the closet, because if we will come out of the closet, all the lies and all the innuendos and everything that homophobes been saying about us would be shattered. Jews have to do it too. We need to come out of the closet as Jews. And it doesn't mean to go and post a manifesto about Zionism. It means breaking challah. It means inviting non-Jewish people into your home for Shabbat. It means being out there so they know that we don't have horns, basically.
I mean, the fact that you have to even say that sentence in 2025, I
know,
there's a bit of sarcasm there, but also we'll recall in the days and weeks after October 7th, there were real conversations had in New York City, and I too am a Soviet Jewish refugee from the Soviet Union, never thought I'd be having these conversations in New York City of all places, where people are concerned about getting into an Uber, having to change their name, should they be taking their mezuzahs down from their front doors? Are their college children safe? I mean, these were real conversations had thousands of miles away from Israel. Maria, you have studied the impact of social media and anti-Semitism, and there's so much good to this world that social media has provided us with: information, real-time, education. We also know there's a lot of negativity and hatred and disinformation, misinformation. Tell us some of your findings that have been maybe most surprising to you. And a lot of this sounds like it could just be a lot of noise. What does the data show? Have we really seen such an increase, or is it just the loudest voices with big platforms?
So before we got on the stage, I was telling Hen that I left academia exactly 5 years ago, which was, I think, really interesting time to leave, because so much has changed, especially within the context of our conversation. So I can answer this question in a twofold way. One, I can tell you what types of discussions we were having. I was a Ph.D. fellow and then a post-doctoral fellow at the USC Film School. So we looked at basically cultural productions, texts, social media posts through the lens of media scholars. We looked how they connect to production of knowledge, how they connect to identity building, how they connect to memory, memorialization, et cetera, et cetera. When I was teaching my students, 99.9% of them were not Jewish. My expertise is Holocaust education, not strictly anti-Semitism. I never studied the problem of anti-Semitism. However, it's impossible to talk about the Holocaust without talking to your students about anti-Semitism. It's a virus, right? So we talked about anti-Semitism being a virus. If it was only as simple as assimilation, no, it's a virus that keeps on mutating. And we basically focus on media literacy back in the day, 5 years ago. And my conversations with my students evolved around learning about the history of anti-Semitism, how the Jews have been historically blamed every time there was an international crisis, upheaval, societal, economic crisis, like in obviously Germany 1930s, but also the Soviet Union that you mentioned. Jews were blamed for being communists and being rotten capitalists, for assimilating too much and being too religious, for being outsiders or for being too present, for being nationalists, Zionists, or internationalists, globalists. I mean, you name it. So the goal was back then to kind of make students sensitive and alert to these tropes. Now my personal research, my dissertation was about this moment of encounter where the sort of guiding question of my research was always, do physical places like Auschwitz-Birkenau matter in the digital age? What is our relationship to these sites of memory and how we navigate these encounters? You know, I smile when I think about I used to my friend from my PhD program is here, my best friend, and we used to joke that I made it in the academic world because 5,000 people read my article, which is a huge success in the academic world, especially in the humanities. And then I sort of made my name within the field. When I wrote the article, I was the first person to write an academic article about selfies from Auschwitz. And that was 10 years ago. And these were the issues. Is it ethical to take a selfie? Is it not? Then Pokemon Go. How do we navigate the relationship between places of memory and augmented reality and then virtual reality? So we were engaging with ethical, moral questions, but we thought that the real bad stuff is behind us. Now, if I were to be in the classroom tomorrow, I would obviously be more interested in thinking about TikTok and artificial intelligence and their impact on production of knowledge and our relationship to reality. What I can say, because now I run the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Foundation, and one of the projects that I'm most proud of is a fellowship for non-Jewish American high school teachers. We fully fund trips. We take them actually to Poland. They spend some time in Warsaw, Krakow, and then 3 days in Auschwitz. So it's an in-depth study. And when they come back, we equip them with lesson plans. Now, they do the actual hard work. They go into their classrooms. And my fellows are not Jewish. I am not Jewish, spoiler alert. So we equip them with addressing non-Jewish students in Montana, Kansas City, Alaska, who have never met a Jewish person, who will probably never meet a Jewish person, who don't have any familial or cultural interest in the topic. So what our focus is on framing anti-Semitism within the context of what matters to them. So we actually use a quote by an Auschwitz survivor, Marian Turski, who spoke at the 75th anniversary, then 2 months ago spoke again at the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and passed away last month. He was an amazing person, and he said Auschwitz didn't fall from the sky, right? So he connected the rise of vile anti-Semitism that eventually led to Auschwitz to a demise of democratic liberal values. And that is exactly what we focus on. So we frame the educational projects within the context of things that may matter to these students. And then we ask them, so what do your students tell you? And the problem is that well-meaning students, consumers of this amazing content that you guys are producing, they are so confused about which are reputable posts and sources. Mm-hmm. They're flooded with content. Everything looks pretty. Everything looks super professional. And I cannot blame them. It's hard for me to sometimes, sometimes these infographics, you just see them and they're compelling.
I feel attacked.
Yeah. No, please don't. But it's true. They're confused because the next step would be for them to do a little bit more research. But the problem is, quite frankly, media literacy, the paradox of media literacy right now. Kids are technologically incredibly media literate. They can edit a video in 2 minutes. They taught me a lot about their relationship to the reality. They said, don't be ashamed to take a selfie. It's not vain. It's your way to archive your presence somewhere. So now I take a lot of selfies. But it doesn't go hand in hand with the advanced critical thinking skills. And unfortunately, there is a lack of general education, historical knowledge, collective memory of what it means to have a continent completely destroyed by war, et cetera, et cetera. As Matthew said, it's a big topic.
Yeah, no doubt. And listen, I wish we could have a whole other panel just to talk about your thoughts on what's happening on college campuses in present day and what is being taught in some of their programs. But that is really insightful that you've picked up on students and even yourself, experts, not knowing fact from fiction. And Matthew, that brings me to probably the last question here, and then we can get to one from the audience. how much time or how much of social media do you think people spend to get answers and to learn versus finding like-minded views that they can just repost, like, and engage with? Because we know so much of these algorithms are curated to find what you and your particular beliefs are.
Sure. Well, another loaded question.
Feel free to
but
chime in.
I would say that the challenge with social media, based on the way algorithms are set up, are, for one, they reward strident, tendentious outrage far more than they reward sober, thoughtful, measured, nuanced headlines. That's probably the biggest issue. The second is algorithms have these ranking systems where when you watch a certain kind of content, especially TikTok, IG Reels, YouTube Shorts, they serve you similar content, which is just reinforcing your beliefs. It doesn't help you sort of break through your echo chamber. So I think you have a serious echo chamber issue, and then I think you have a, what I would call a sensationalism and emotional bias issue, where what's served to you is inherently more sensationalist, emotional, polarizing, meant to make you want to feel something and engage longer than something that's actually perhaps made to want to change your mind. So I think social media is a tough place to go when you want to change your mind. I think you have to get off of social media when you want to change your mind. That said, if you want information that reinforces a lot of your beliefs, or information that is generally more dialed up, it's obviously a very easy place to find it. I think what you can do to make your social media diet environment more effective is really try to follow as many different kinds of diverse, credible news and creator accounts who maybe challenge you and don't just reinforce your echo chamber. And I have to go out of my way as someone who runs a publishing company to make sure that I'm seeing a very diverse diet of media, because unless I do, I fall victim to it. So I think that's the challenge with algorithms. How you regulate it is a whole another 90-minute Paley Center panel. How you deal with it, the self-enforcement from the platforms versus if there's government or oversight boards. I mean, it's extremely complicated. But
bots
and so forth. And then also there's the nefarious actors on social, like I said. We now see state governments who are actually sponsoring misinformation. So yeah, it's a very tough environment to get to the truth, but for people who love and seek the truth, I think Jews often seek the truth, it's not a place, like I said, that you can just sort of throw your hands up and give up, because it is where the battle for hearts and minds is being won. So it's easy to say it's all terrible, let's ignore it, but we have to keep fighting.
Well, it's a perfect segue to the audience question that we have 5 minutes to answer, so good luck. After multiple social media platforms removed guardrails around fact-checking ahead of last year's election, what kind of impact did that have on the spread of anti-Semitism? Whoever wants to pick that one up, feel free.
I'll just say a 30-second answer, and then Hen, maybe you have some thought. But I think we've seen, especially on X, a much bigger rise of right-wing anti-Semitism. It never went away under Biden, but it was less emboldened, and I think it's now more emboldened, to the point where Nick Fuentes and some of these young, literal neo-Nazis are getting hundreds of thousands of retweets. Don't just take my word for it, scroll down, on every single one of their posts. And that's repugnant. And the algorithms are recommending them to certain people in the kinds of echo chambers where they exist. And I think that's going to be a new frontier we have to deal with and stay vigilant on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think X has been probably the far worst of all the platforms, X and TikTok. It's based on the conversations we have with them. With Meta, I was pleasantly surprised that the fact that they are listening to us, that they are having conversation with the Jewish community, with Jewish leaders. Is it perfect? It's not perfect, but I'm definitely much more hopeful about Meta than any other social media platform.
Well, it's a race to the bottom, though, in terms of who has it worse, because I know many Democrats were very disappointed and disenfranchised over the last year and a half, in particular, with what they thought was a lack of support among progressives on the left, some of the points that you made, Hannah, as well. And many turned to being single-issue voters, or just feeling alone without a party and homeless. So, have at it, who's worse. But the fact is that they're really, this has exposed the anti-Semitism, knows no politics. It's on all sides. Maria, did you want to weigh in? Or?
No, I think.
I wonder about the single issue voters now. Where do they stand now? I mean, we've seen craziness go down for the last 6 weeks. And in a lot of ways, the far right now is really outrageous with the things that they're putting out on X and social media and organized, quite organized. And I just wonder, what are their thoughts now, those people who voted that way?
It's become quite sick because, Jews always love telling jokes, even the darkest of times. And, the takeaway is, the Jews will be blamed. At the end of the day, whatever happens, whoever wins, it'll ultimately be the Jews' fault. And Ken, maybe we can end on this note. This war has been going on for now 18, 19 months, Israel's longest war. So many civilians killed, so much suffering, 49 hostages remain in Gaza. 24 are believed to still be alive. And you talk to these hostages, you talk to their family members, and they are extremely grateful to both Biden and President Trump for getting this deal done. Can I just ask you, listen, having come from Israel last week, there was something so rewarding to see a safe space where people can support the state of Israel and fight anti-Semitism and have debates with each other about which side is right here and who's, got Israel's best intentions, at heart. So that was something that was important, I think, for my children to see, and I would encourage all of you as well. But Ken, the push to bring these hostages home and to see this war coming to an end is also something that is not your top priority right now. So thank you for the work that you've been doing, but if you want to leave us with a message on that note.
Yeah, just to echo what you said, I mean, my dad is a big Netanyahu supporter. It's completely wrong. I still love him. I still love him, and we can have disagreement. We can have Shabbat dinners, and still love each other because my dad. And I think it's true for a lot of us in this community. We feel like there's different opinions. If people are one-issue voters or have different political views, we need to fight all of this darkness that is around us and bring more light into the world. And it's true also on social media. There's so much darkness out there, and instead of just focusing on censoring, we should focus on bringing more positive speech. And I think the most important thing above all is to bring back the hostages, bring back the ones that are still there. It's not just what I think, it's what the families are saying, it's what the hostages that are returning are saying. It's the one, you want one issue, this is the one issue, that it doesn't matter where you stand politically, it doesn't matter what you think about Israel, about the conflict, about the war. We need to bring them home. We need to bring them home not only for the families, of course for the families, but for who we are and what we stand for and what we're fighting against, because we can't lose who we are in this war.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you all so much. It was great to be with you, and thank you for being here tonight with us.